Max McGareth and his mother Molly end up going back to the town of Copper Canyon after the 8th time of finding a place to settle in. Years ago, his father Jim died in a supposed storm incident that hit their research laboratory, which is NTech. After that incident, Molly took Max and kept on transferring from one place to another as per finding a doctor that can help him with his unknown condition. Because of that, despite not being an actual loner, Max got used to not having any permanent friends. One afternoon, he is hanging out on the roof of their house and gets a glimpse of the old NTech lab. Called by his mom, Max helps Molly get their things inside as she tells him that they are finally home. Yet, he still doubts that they will actually stay at Copper Canyon for good, to which she promises that they will. Some time later, in his room, Max finds their old family photo as well as the planetary display that his father made for him when he was still a baby. In turn, Molly sees his drawing of the old NTech lab, so he asks her if that is where his father died. When she confirms it, Max doesn't say a word, but his sadness is visible in his face. At this time, the electricity starts flickering, so Molly leaves to call an electrician. Max, on the other hand, notices that his hand is emitting some sort of unknown energy that confuses him. The next day, Max decides to stop by the old NTech lab before heading to school. But as Molly sends him a message, his phone suddenly dies in his hand. Annoyed, he just decides to go to school where he nearly gets run over by a truck. However, despite not getting hit, his bike still crashes on the city road. Luckily, the driver of the truck named Sophia, who's also a student where he's studying, decides to come to his aid. After making sure that Max is fine, she tells him to meet her after class so she can take a look at his bike. A little later, Max finally gets into his first class and he realizes that his father was a well-known figure in the school after a teacher recognizes him for his surname. In addition to that, there is also a picture of Jim on the bulletin board as once part of the school's science club. Upon the end of the class, Sophia picks up Max and takes him to her house to fix his bike. On their way, Max compliments her truck, in which she says that it was she and her dad that fixed it. Hearing that, he guesses that Sophia named the truck, but she just smiles at him. Not long after, they arrive home and Sophia finally finishes fixing the bike. At this time, the two start to have a moment, but they get interrupted when a radio suddenly turns on. With that, he awkwardly says bye and heads home. There, Max finds his mother talking to a man, who she introduces as Miles Edwards. At first, he doesn't have an idea who he is, but as Miles says that he was the one sending him random Christmas presents every year, Max finally recognizes him. Just then, he remembers that Miles used to work with his father. At dinner, Miles tells Max some stories about his father and states that he was a special man. In turn, he asks if Molly and Miles have been in touch all these years, to which Miles says that this is the first time that they have met. Molly then reveals to him that it was actually Miles that convinced her that it was time for them to come back to Copper Canyon. At this time, Max asks what was his role in NTech. According to Miles, he was mostly doing paperwork while Jim was the one who truly led them. Yet, Molly remarks that Miles managed to rebuild NTech and is the one managing it nowadays. But Miles points out that he is still following Jim's vision of saving the world even up to the present. As it turns out, Miles was there on the night of the accident. Hearing that, emotions fill Max up and cause the power to get cut. Being clueless as to what truly causes it, Max goes down to the basement to restart the power. Going back, he overhears his mother and Miles talking about something that Molly doesn't want to discuss with him just yet. Meanwhile, at the new NTech lab, two researchers notice that the subject that they have been monitoring has finally shown signs of life. One of them also mentions that it is the first time that it happened in 16 years. All of a sudden, a big explosion in the water happens, but the water seems to stop moving midair. Then the alarm goes off, so they call for security, stating that the subject is no longer in stasis mode. Shortly, the security arrives and they manage to corner the subject, which appears to be a drone-like creature. Yet, it still gets past them and eventually escapes. Going back to the house, Miles gives his business card to Max and says that he can come to the new NTech lab anytime he pleases if he ever wants to know about his father's work. Just then, Max goes to his room and researches the incident, where he finds footage of what happened and some articles suggesting that it was not a normal storm that hit NTech that day. However, his computer suddenly dies and it starts to annoy him. As he lightly slams the table, his hand starts glowing and releasing liquid-like energy. He tries to stop it, but it just overloads, cutting the power in the whole house again. The following day, he tries to harness his newfound ability by trying to turn on electrical appliances. However, he gets overly excited that he ends up destroying all of the appliances. With that, he just decides to go to school, where Sophia asks him to meet her at a diner the following day. Because of that, he gets overwhelmed again and causes the vending machine behind him to malfunction. At home, he cleverly uses rubber gloves so his energy will not affect his computer again as he tries to research what is happening to him. But, as expected, he doesn't find the answers that he is looking for. Later on, Max goes and finds his mother resting outside. At this time, he reveals to her that he overhears her conversation with Miles and asks why she is not telling him anything about his father. He even remarks that Copper Canyon knows more about Jim than him. In turn, Molly says that Jim was indeed a very special man, but he was also a complicated one. So, despite wanting him to know more about his father, she doesn't think that he is ready for the truth just yet. Unknown to them, the subject from N-Tech is watching them, specifically Max, from afar, and it seems that it can see the energy inside his body. The next day, Max goes to the diner where he is meeting Sophia. When he arrives, she is already waiting for him, so he apologizes for being late, stating that his phone is kind of broken. At this time, Sophia finally reveals to Max that she indeed named her truck and it is called Frida. This makes Max chuckle, so Sophia tells him that not all people know about it. In turn, he jokingly says that her secret is safe with him. Hearing that, Sophia says that she knows his secret too, which makes Max nervous. According to her, she knows that Max is pretty good at being alone. Because of that, she wants to be close with him, so she asks him to put his number on her phone, suggesting that she can give him a tour and show him around town. However, upon holding Sophia's phone, it dies immediately and his head starts to hurt a lot. With that, Max excuses himself and goes to the bathroom, but the pain is not going away. Instead, the energy in his body starts to overload as if he is about to explode. Eventually, he bails out of the diner, leaving Sophia alone and confused as to what is happening to him. Concurrently, the subject is still watching over him from afar and sees him running away, so it decides to follow him. Arriving at the woods, Max cannot take it anymore and releases all the energy stored up in his body, causing him to lose consciousness. However, he finds himself in his room when he wakes up, giving him the idea that it was just a dream. But it is proven to be true when he notices the holes in his sheet and shirt, as well as the burn mark that is shaped like the letter V on his chest. Just then, the drone-like creature finally shows itself to Max, scaring him. As he swings the baseball bat at the creature, it suddenly speaks his name and tells him to put down the bat. According to it, the creature is a parasitic, silicon-based life form, which means that it is an alien. However, the alien seems to be remembering only fragments of its memories. Luckily, it remembers its name, which is Axtel, but he says that Max can call him Steel because it is what a certain someone called him before. In turn, Max asks where the alien came from, but Steel doesn't know specifically. But what the alien knows is that it needs to protect Max from everything that will try to kill him for his energy. Hearing that, Max questions Steel about what it knows about his energy. However, they get interrupted when Molly shows up, so Max quickly hides Steel in the laundry. When she's gone, Steel notices that Max is starting to store up the energy once again, so it attaches to him and absorbs the energy off of him. With that, Max puts Steel inside his bag and plans to go back to the woods where the alien found him so it can go home. But to his surprise, Steel states that he will be generating the energy called tachyon for the rest of his life, so it is up to Steel to absorb it and prevent Max from exploding. This makes Max stop driving as Steel goes on to say that he was supposed to explode yesterday and he was lucky that Steel made it in time. Not long after, a bunch of armed people show up and it seems like they are looking for Steel. Thinking quickly, Max sabotages their tracker using his energy. Because of that, Steel commends him, but they still get spotted and shot at. This causes the two to immediately get away from there. While on the run, Max confronts the alien about why people are shooting at them. However, Steel already told him everything that it can remember. Desperate, Max tells him to try harder, and it actually worked. In a flashback, it is revealed that Steel was in N-Tech during the day that Jim died, as one of the researchers said that the Ultralinks are closing in. But what confuses Max is why he sees it as if he was the one who's in that moment. At this time, Steel insists that the two of them are connected, and it may be the reason why he can see its memories through its point of view. Max asks what are Ultralinks and if Steel is one of them, to which it declines. According to Steel, Ultralinks are dangerous creatures as they destroy every world that they come to. Just then, Max notices that the armed men are close, so the two of them head to the school where they cannot follow. Arriving at school, Max struggles to hide Steel because he won't stop talking. After a while, he bumps into Sophia, so he quickly takes the opportunity to apologize for bailing out on her. And to make it up to her, he asks her to go out next time, which makes her smile. Yet, Steel is trying to drag him away, so Max excuses himself again. On the other hand, Steel notices that Sophia makes Max's heart rate and respiration increase, so the alien suggests that he should avoid her. But, in return, Max tells Steel to shut up and insists that Sophia is not dangerous. At this point, Max is running out of options on where to hide, pointing out that they cannot stay in school for much longer. Just then, the alien sticks to his leg to absorb his energy. According to Steele, every time he gets worked out or emotional, his energy will start building up in his body. The alien then suggests that maybe his mom can help them, but Max doesn't want to involve her in the mess. He says that she has been through so much since his father died. This then surprises Max as he realizes that he just opens up to Steele. In turn, the alien says that it is fine because they are already connected in the first place and insists that he can tell him anything. With that, Max says that it will be a great help if Steele can remember who are the people that are coming after them. So Steele tries to remember anything but still gets nothing. Yet, he points at Max's drawing of the old ENTech lab, stating that the Ultralinks will always come for them. In this sense, the two decide to go to the abandoned ENTech lab. And for the first time, Max sets foot in the very place where his father loses his life. There he asks if Steele can remember anything now, yet the alien still gets nothing. But what it sees is the buildup of energy in Max's body, so he attaches to him again. Just then, a trace of energy gets released in his hand and Steele manages to control it. According to the alien, they can harness the power of the tachyon energy if they work together and then produce turbo energy. It also explains that the energy is so powerful that it can enhance his physical attributes, such as enhanced speed and strength. At this point, Max begins training and incorporating his movements with tachyon energy. And to his surprise, Steele manages to fuse with him when he accidentally falls, forming a suit of armor around him. Confused, Max asks how it happens, to which Steele points out that whenever they harmonize their energy, they can become one. Just then, another flashback of memories flows into Max's mind. This time, it is revealed that Steele actually worked with his father in stopping the Ultralinks before. Upon this realization, Steele also states that the supposed storm that killed Jim was actually an Ultralink. The next day, Max sees the business card that Miles gave him before and thinks that he is the one that can understand and help him. Due to that, they make their way to the new ENTech lab. Unfortunately, the armed men are back on their tails, so Max and Speed decide to split. And by good fortune, he stumbles into Sophia, who he asks for help to drive her across the town. After a while, they finally arrive at the ENTech and Max talks to Miles about how his father died. In turn, Miles says that it shouldn't come from him, but Max insists, so he shows him a miniature of a power core that he and Jim were working on before. According to him, Jim's goal was noble, but he overstepped, implying that it was his own fault that he died. Hearing that, Max gets overwhelmed by emotions, and without Steele to absorb his energy, he starts feeling the pain again. Due to that, he runs away from Miles and Sophia. However, he gets suddenly attacked by an Ultralink that controls the wind to create a tornado. Luckily, Steele shows up just in time to fuse with him, eventually saving him. Just then, they use the turbo energy to take down the Ultralink, revealing that they are just like Steele. At this time, new memories come flashing by, and it shows that Steele seemed to betray Jim, which ended up costing his life. Because of that, Max gets angry at the confused Steele. In turn, Steele says otherwise and insists that it was helping Jim fight the other Ultralinks. But still, Max tells the alien to get away from him. With that, he goes home alone and gets scared when he sees that their house is surrounded by the armed men that were chasing him and Steele. To make matters worse, he gets spotted, so they run after him again. Fortunately, he uses his enhanced speed and loses them. He then goes to Sophia's place and asks for her truck, phone, and a pair of rubber gloves, as he promises that he will tell her everything once he fixes his problem. Trusting him, Sophia gives him everything that he needs. Later on, while driving, Max calls Miles and tells him that his mother was hostage. To his surprise, Miles turns out to be aware of the danger he's in. As it turns out, he knows about the Ultralinks as well. According to Miles, the people who got Molly are probably at the old ENTech lab and are using her as bait to actually get him. He warns him to be smart about it, but Max just turns around and heads to the old lab. Meanwhile, Sophia cannot help but worry about Max, so she calls his home, to which Molly surprisingly answers the phone. It is then revealed that the armed men were actually ENTech agents. She scolds them for following Miles' order to kill Steele and endangering the life of her son. Molly points out that she is the major shareholder of ENTech, so they should follow her. Just then, she orders the agents to find Max. Speaking of whom, he just reaches the old ENTech lab and finds the core where his father died. There, he sees that Steele is back in stasis mode. At this time, Max finally gets a whole flashback of memories which shows the truth that it wasn't Steele that betrayed his father but Miles. As it turns out, Jim is also an alien who goes by the name McRaw. After Miles sabotaged the defense system of the lab, the Ultralinks got inside so they could watch him kill Jim. That was the deal Miles made with them just so he could have Jim's Tachyon energy. However, Jim didn't let him win and overloaded himself to explode. But before sacrificing himself, he told Steel to look for Max and take care of him when the right time comes. As he gets back to the present, Max sees Miles wearing a special suit that he made so he can absorb Tachyon energy. To even up the match, he pretends to go into the core like Miles wanted so he can wake up Steel and fuse with it. This then gives him a better fighting chance. However, since Miles' suit is made specifically to counter Max's energy, he still cannot get the upper hand. Just then, the N-Tech agents arrive and distract Miles long enough for Max and Steel to come up with a plan to defeat him. After Miles takes down the agents, Max attacks him again. And upon getting cornered, Max shoots Miles with turbo energy and overwhelms him with the energy that he wanted so badly that he ends up exploding. This then knocks down both Max and Steel, but they survive as the other agents arrive with his mother, finally saving him. As it turns out, Molly and Steel know each other as well. The next morning, Molly apologizes to Max for hiding the truth. She says that she was afraid that Max would end up like Jim, but she is now proud that he actually did. Before she leaves, Molly gives her pendant to Max, which turns out to be the key to illuminate the planetary display in his room and reveal their home planet. Afterward, Max goes to see Sophia and thanks her for always being there for him. Then he gives a drawing of her from the first time that they met. With that, the two of them kiss and promise to go on a tour using Sophia's truck. The movie ends with Max and Steel flying away as he now trains to properly harness his energy. Max Steel is far from being a great movie, but the potential is there. The lore is great, but they seem to just lack in the characterization department. But still, it is a fun experience to watch the movie, making it worthy of your time.